The new Mario Kart game has been out for a couple months now, and while everyone else is enjoying the open world and new mechanics, I'm going to answer the question on everyone's mind. Can you touch water in every track in Mario Kart World? About a year ago, I tried out this same idea with Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart DS, so feel free to check out those videos if you're interested. Now, with that out of the way, let's see how much water I can touch in Mario Kart World. I decided to start off with the tracks that I didn't expect to have water, just to get them out of the way first. While I thought Acorn Heights might have some water tucked away, I couldn't find any. There is a giant lake at the bottom of the track, but I had no way of touching it, so this track is sadly impossible. Unsurprisingly, Bowser's Castle has absolutely no water to be found. It's all fire and lava, so there was no chance any water could be here. Drybones Burnout was a very similar story. This track is in the middle of a desert, surrounded by lava. There's no way any water would be here. There are some desert tracks in other Mario Kart games that have some water, but sadly, this isn't one of them. Moving on to Airship Fortress, once again, this track has no water. I even tried jumping out of bounds to see if I could find some, but I just got brought back up before I got too far. Like I said earlier, I didn't expect those tracks to have any water, so I think we'll get better luck as we move on. Making my way to Toad's factory, this track actually has water. All I needed to do was jump a ramp and I could soak in all that sweet ice-cold H2O. Moving on to Wario Stadium, surprise surprise, there isn't any water. There are patches of mud, and you do need water to make mud, but they seem more solid, so I don't really think they count. I tried looking around in other places, but it seems like this track doesn't have any actual water. While Shy Guy Bazaar does have some waterfalls, they're too far away to reach, so I wasn't able to touch any of it. Seems like I'm getting some real bad luck so far, but let's just hope that there's lots of water later on. If we take a look at Mario Bros. Circuit, there actually is a lake near the bottom of this bridge. Lakitu does bring me up before I get too far, but hey, I was still able to touch it, so I'll take this. I honestly wasn't really expecting Desert Hills to have any water, but to my surprise, there's a lake right in front of the starting line. I swear, some tracks are so backwards on what has water and what doesn't. If we move on to Whistle Stop Summit, there's not too much here. I spent a couple minutes driving around trying to find any lakes or puddles, but sadly, I didn't find anything like that. After searching around for a bit, I ended up finding out that there's a giant lake near the bottom of this track. You might think that this is good news, but I couldn't get anywhere near it. I tried driving into it and falling off the bridge, but I just got pulled back up onto the track. For some reason, I feel like this one is possible if you hit it with the right angle, but I wasn't able to make it work. At this point, I started to get a little worried that this game just doesn't have very much water, which is odd considering this is an open world game. In spite of that though, I decided to keep going because I knew there were some other tracks that had plenty of water. I just had to keep up the momentum. Making my way to Mario Circuit, this one also has no water. Usually the standard circuit tracks don't have any water, so this wasn't really a surprise. What I did find a little surprising, however, is that I actually gained more appreciation for this track after racing through it again. These tracks aren't anything too crazy, they just ease the player into the game, but honestly, I think it's a fairly solid track. Continuing on to Moo Moo Meadows, huge shocker, this one also doesn't have any water. There is a small waterfall near the windmills, but I couldn't find any way of accessing it. Maybe if you were playing in the free roam mode you'd be able to touch it, but in a regular time trial, it's just not possible. Hey, this is editing Robin Dunks. I lied. There actually is water in Moo Moo Meadows. I don't know how I overlooked this when I was scripting this. There is absolutely water in this track. I have no idea how I missed that. While you can touch water in Peach Stadium, it does take a little bit of work. The first time I tried this track, I tried just driving into the water, but then Lakitu would just pull me up. Then I thought, maybe if I use a mushroom, I'll be able to touch the water before I get sent back onto the track. And I don't think using a mushroom whenever would be good enough. I wanted to make sure I could get as close as possible. So after setting myself up and using the mushroom, I was just barely able to get into the water. The only way I could tell I touched it was by the small ripple effect you can only see for a couple of seconds. I looked around the rest of the track for some more convenient water, but that small fountain was the best I could do, and I'll still count it. It's actually a very similar story with Crown City. There is a giant ocean around the city, but you get pulled up before you get too far. After a couple tries, I was able to just barely touch the water, but it sadly didn't last long. Lakitu just won't let me enjoy any water. Hate to see it. When I got started with DK Spaceport, I knew for a fact that there was water in this track. The only challenge was finding a way to touch it. I'm just gonna cut to the chase, I couldn't find a way to touch it. I tried jumping off the ramps, falling off the track, using mushrooms, nothing seemed to work. In all honesty, I just don't think you can touch the water in this track. I know you could touch it if you were in the free roam mode, but I just don't think you can here. Moving forward to Koopa Troopa Beach, of course this track has water in it. This track may be fairly simple, but there's plenty of water to touch. I know this track isn't too crazy, but I just like beach levels in games, so I actually really like this one. Dino Dino Jungle is another really easy track. Below the bridge is an entire lake, so there's tons of water to go around. And if that's not enough for you, you can also get some extra water through these geysers. It's always nice to have options. As for Boo Cinema, this one is really weird. Throughout the entire track, there isn't any water. However, there is a lake near the start of the track. I tried using a mushroom to get as close as possible, and while that did work, the railing keeps me from actually getting into the lake. Maybe if you got some elevation this track would be possible, but even then I kinda doubt it. Dandelion Depths is another super easy track. As long as you follow the track like normal, it'll take you to a giant flowing river. Moving on to Cheep Cheep Falls, this one is more than doable. Not only are there multiple waterfalls, there's also a giant river that's part of the track. I'm just gonna throw this in there real quick, but this track looks really good. All the lighting and atmosphere makes this track really pleasant to race on. I know when you're playing Mario Kart, it's really easy to overlook the atmosphere and stuff, but this one looks really good. Fairway Oasis has plenty of water for you to touch. Not only is there a river near the start of the track, but there's also another river near the end. Moving on to Starview Peak, I was actually a little surprised when I found out there was actually water in this track. It may be light blue and full of glitter, but I still think this counts as water. DK Pass definitely has some room to argue against its water status. The track is full of snow, and you do need water to make snow, so in a weird way it kind of does count, I think. Last time I tried this in Mario Kart DS, I decided to count it as water, and I think I'll do the same here. Sadly, I couldn't find any actual water, so it looks like this is the closest we're gonna get. Moving on to Salty Salty Speedway. Yeah, I think this one is possible. Great Block Ruins is actually a bit of a mess when it comes to touching water. There are some waterfalls in this track, but they either stop flowing when you get near them, or Lakitu pulls you out of the air. So even if we have access to water, this track prevents us from actually making contact with it. So you're probably thinking this track isn't possible, but you technically can touch water in this one. Near the end, you can bounce off some clouds to get a boost, and last time I checked, clouds are made of water, even more so than snow. It's the same as DK Pass. I think this one still technically counts and I'm allowed to move on. Sky High Sundae. Yeah, you don't need me to tell you that this one isn't possible. I figured there could be maybe a soda lake or a melted ice cream cone somewhere, but I couldn't find any liquids in this track. Wario Shipyard is an easy track to touch water in. There's water basically everywhere, so this one is no issue. Same thing with Peach Beach. You can get to the water in under a minute in this track. And if that's not good enough for you, there's also a second beach near the finish line, so there's lots of water you can touch. Moving on to Choco Mountain, I honestly have no idea what to make of this one. There is some kind of liquid in this track, so much liquid you can actually sink in it. However, I don't believe this is supposed to be water. If we take the title literally, I'm guessing it's supposed to be chocolate, and last I checked, there's no water in chocolate. I tried driving around for some normal water, but I wasn't able to find anything. I honestly think you'd have a tough time arguing that this is water. It may be full of liquid, but I think it's just supposed to be chocolate. Continuing on, the final track I have is Rainbow Road. In my other attempts, I actually ended up with two different answers. On one hand, I said that you do need water to make a rainbow, so Rainbow Road does count as touching water. Then on the other hand, I found out that Rainbow Road was actually just a clear reflective surface, so that means there's no water. Both of those ideas could technically be right, since we don't exactly have a clear answer on what Rainbow Road is actually made of. So you might think with all of that this track technically isn't possible. Well, in spite of all of that though, this track actually does have water. The water is similar to Starview Peak, with the water being all glittery and shiny, but this still counts. Even plants are able to grow near it, so I think it's safe to say that 100% with no doubts, we can touch water in Rainbow Road. And just like that, the challenge was over. I had tried to touch water in every track in Mario Kart World. While I did get really unlucky with a lot of tracks, there was actually a good amount of tracks that surprisingly enough did have water. So while I may not have been able to touch water in every track, I'm pretty satisfied with what I was able to get done. Even if there wasn't water in every track, I still think I did a decent job. Feel free to let me know if you want to see this same challenge with a different Mario Kart game, like Mario Kart 64 or Mario Kart 7. Or if you want to see a different challenge, like trying to touch grass or rocks or something like that. Anyways, make sure to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it if you did. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you, and I will see you all later. The new Fantastic Four movie is so good.